talk show one.
Now, if you want, just scroll to the very bottom for the live one and do research meeting.
Oh.
Just do that one. That's been working the best so far.
Okay.
Are you live?
Yes.
We are live and in color. We're available. Showing my age there.
Yeah. Although I do know those words.
Yeah, they're in the dictionary. I looked them up.
My name is in that order for what it means.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Danielle Whitworth, and this is
John Wilker, Vice President of RPG Research. What are we doing here today, Danielle?
I'm the treasurer, and we're doing the talk show.
The RPG talk show.
The RPG talk show. Here, you know what.
Okay, I will read the script. Welcome to the RPG Talk Show. I am your host, John Wilker, with co-host Danielle. This show discusses weekly news, information. Your battery's dying, so I'm going to read it quickly. Show discusses weekly news, information, commentary, discussion, and debate, and the effects of all role-playing games formats and potential uses for professional, educational, recreational, and therapeutic goals. The RPG Talk Show is not about the latest modules and releases. There are plenty of sources for that information. We will mention such releases when related to the aforementioned topics. However, you can learn more about the RPG Talk Show, hosts, guests, and archives of previous episodes on our website, rpgtalkshow.com. You can follow us on Twitter at RPG Talk Show. You can catch our show live on twitch.tv, RPG Research, on Thursdays, 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, and we did die.
Twitch.tv/RPG Research.
Did we
You
die?
gotta say the slashes.
Yes.
No, it's not.
Okay, John, I sent you a copy as well.
Yeah, it is.
To where?
To your RPG Research email.
Well, that would have been nice if it shown up. And here we go. Literally just now.
It just hit 15. How did it die already?
Because you don't charge your phone on a regular basis.
I do charge my phone on a regular basis. I literally worked for 10 hours on my phone today, though.
That would do it. That's why.
Well, and it's charged between each section.
All right. So, as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by electrical issues. Twitter at RPG.show. You can catch our show live on twitch.tv/RPG Research on Thursdays, 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, assuming I show up on time, that is, and chat with us during the live broadcast. RPG Research Patreon supporters can access the recorded episode a month or more before they are available to the general public. As a thank you for your support. Patreon.com/RPG Research. Later on YouTube.com/RPG Research. We will be transferring that over in the near future. And role-playing game formats we discuss include the original tabletop RPG, referred to usually as RPG or TRPG. There is no T, just one T. Please stop using completely unnecessary and wasteful two T's of TTRPG, unless you're saying therapeutic tabletop role-playing games. Then we can add the extra T. Live-action role-playing games, LRPG, a.k.a. Larps, electronic RPG, a.k.a. eRPG, and solo adventure books and modules, a.k.a. SABM, and hybrid RPGs, HRPG.
Point of note, LRPG includes LARPs. LARPs are a subset of LRPG.
We'll have a discussion about that later.
Yes.
Because I want to know how live-action role-playing has a subset of itself.
Live-action role-playing games and LARPs are under that.
Oh.
Okay.
Live-action role-play, because it's gotten its own word, has also kind of changed the focus. So the LRPG has more rules and structure and is closer to the tabletop experience, but in a live-action mode.
Got it.
LARPs are Boffers and Salon and all those others that tend to be a lot lighter on the rules. So there's a spectrum. It's for the RPG model.
Yes. We can discuss it later when you're on the show.
Yes.
Get to work on here. You're supposed to work. All right. Anyways, the episode is sponsored by our wonderful patron supporters and the nonprofit RPG Research. We are also sponsored by RPG Therapeutics, LLC, and the Dots RPG. And you can see I am wearing the buttons over here, the Dot tag here. And I don't know if you can see on the camera, but okay, good. We're good to go.
We can kind of, yeah,
All right.
I'm pretty sure.
You can learn more about RPG Research, the nonprofit 501c3 research and human services organization studying the effects of all RPG formats and their potential to improve lives at www.rpgresearch.com. Learn more about RPG Therapeutics, LLC for the for-profit professional services company at www.rpgtherapeutics.com. And the nonprofit Dots RPG at dotsrpg.com. Show varies each week, but typically includes latest general RPG news related to our focus on role-playing games and research, community response and discussion, RPG-related theories and applicable discussions, latest updates on RPG research, RPG bus, RPG trailer, RPG tour, etc., etc., etc. For the first week in RPG news, John, next me.
Mm-hmm.
So again, as in our normal format, I would go over some new things. Some of the things I'm just going to mention in passing because we've been talking enough about them. Now, games and education. That's games ampersand and games ampersand education.blogspot.com has the latest CRPGA, that's CAR-PGA newsletter, March 2019, an international network of researchers in all aspects of role-playing games. And just letting you guys know they do have their newsletter out there. It's there for you to read. And they do a letter from the chair, and they're discussing Zach Smith, also known as Zach S. and Zach Sabbath, I believe. Do you know who this is?
Is that the person who was removed from the board? I have not caught this
Okay. You should be watching my talk show.
I'm sorry. There's so many things to do in a day.
Well, I'm going to cry now. All right. So, Zach S. is accused of domestic dispute, violence, and sexual misconduct, and other various
What is he associated with? Because that might ring a bell for me.
Well, he's associated with a show called I Hit It With My Axe.
Okay.
He is a porn star. Zach Smith appeared in the video series I Hit It With My Axe and is known for playing D&D with Porn Stars blog. He has also written several RPG books, most recently Laminations of the Flame Princess. He didn't write the entire Laminations of the Flame Princess. He wrote several of the modules and stories there. He consulted on the D&D 5th Edition Player's Handbook and has won multiple Ennies. Recently worked for White Wolf. His ex-partner, Mandy Morbid, recently accused Smith of abuse, including testimonies from two other partners, Hannah and Jennifer, and followed testimony by another ex-partner, Vivica Gray. Now, he did post a rebuttal, and he used the hashtag #AbuseIsNotAGame on Twitter. The RPG community has co-opted the hashtag by tweeting its support for the victims. But he has lost, he's been deplatformed basically. N-World, Drive-Thru RPG.
So I want to disclose this.
Gen Con and everybody else has dismissed him.
I have a problem. It's not with them serving time or being convicted. I have a problem with the post-prosecution. Being a woman who has been abused in the past, I think it's getting out of control.
I just want to, I do this talk all the time, so don't feel I'm picking on you.
Yeah.
You need to define what you mean by post-prosecution. Now are you trying to say you have a problem with what happens after he's gone to court and has been prosecuted?
I'm having a problem also with before.
Oh, so pre-prosecution.
And post-prosecution guilt. Like, I feel like we're on a crusade. Yeah. And it's like anyone who's ever done anything awful should be nailed on a cross for the rest of their lives. They're human. You make a mistake. I mean, granted, these are bigger mistakes, and I don't support them, obviously, having been a victim of domestic violence myself. And I just...
The court of public opinion does not require evidence.
Exactly. And that's part of the problem. And also, if they go to jail and they spend their time and they come out, and granted they're not going immediately back in, why wouldn't we support them in being a productive member of society? Because all we're doing is breeding people to go back into the system and then back into the system and then back into the system by continuously prosecuting them on something that might have happened 40 years ago when they were a teenager, and granted, and times may have changed for some of the older generation that was the norm. And granted, I'm not saying that the norm is good. Like, I know that
this was not 40 years ago, by the way.
Yeah, no, and it doesn't matter that. But,
stuff, but
I have a problem with because it's not just this time that I'm talking about.
Right.
I have a problem with their jobs getting involved and their other parts of their life getting involved. Granted, you choose to socially, you should, don't, if he's someone that you don't want to socially associate yourself with, don't do it. But I think that even if you're doing good in the world, like stopping them from doing good in the world, even though they've done something bad, it's just going to put more bad into the world.
Well, there is something to say an argument that I don't want my company associated with a convicted rapist. And I will not hire one for working with at-risk youth, etc., etc. That's a different story.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
But I'm agreeing with you that when we convict somebody prior to one of the problems that is with the Zach Smith case is I don't believe anybody's going to actually go to court. So this is 100% going to be tried in the court of public opinion.
And that's where I have a real problem with this. Yeah. I don't support domestic abuse, but I also don't support we're not the judge and jury. I'm not very religious, but I will not throw the first stone, and I consider this throwing a stone because I am not the person who has looked at the evidence, all of the evidence on both sides. What you might not be seeing is that these women are treating him just as crappy as he's treating them.
What about the hashtag I believe her?
And see, I don't follow hashtags. I'm a young person that doesn't follow hashtags.
You understand what the hashtag I believe her is about?
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. We need to believe the victims.
And I totally believe that. Like, if what I was going through, no one would have believed me. It would have been tragic. And I think I could have died if I wouldn't have. But I'm not here to share my story.
Right.
But I'm just saying that you should take it. It should be put into a court. The court should look at the evidence because they're trained on how to look at the evidence and how to go about these things in a fair way that we have put laws into place for. And then that person should be convicted by the courts, which will remove them from society usually, or they'll pay a hefty fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they still continue, they'll still keep going back to the courts. So I'm for using our judicial system versus public opinion.
Now, I did not want to spend any time on this other than mentioning the fact that it was our... the only reason I didn't want to spend any time on this is because we have been rehashing this for about 3 weeks now.
Okay, well, I didn't know. I'm sorry.
No. The reason we're allowing it is because it's really bad for two white middle-aged men to debate the merits of this thing, and having the opinion of a female is valid and very important, so I need to let you speak. So that's why we spent more time than I was planning on this one. Speaking of courts, Fantasy's Widow, The Fight Over the Legacy of Dungeons and Dragons by Cecilia D'Anastasio. This is at kotaku.com. You can look it up there. But this is an article about Gail Gaiax. And Gail Gaiax is still fighting and arguing. We've talked about it in a previous thing. She is worried about people invading her home, stealing things. Somebody put up a tripwire that she said was there to kill her. And the arguments are, of course, who has the rights to the name of Gary Gaiax, who has the right to Castle Greyhawk, which was going to be republished as Castle Zayag because the Greyhawk name wasn't allowed to be used for obvious reasons, since they don't own it anymore. Who has the rights to the memorial and all of these things? And of course, we're not the court. We can't really tell you who has this case. Gail Gaiax, for those of you who don't know, is the second wife of Gary Gaiax, the inventor of the most famous and the first role-playing game ever, Dungeons and Dragons. She does come off, in my opinion, from reading the article. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it.
I've seen parts of it. I haven't been able to sit down and read.
Partially paranoid and partially completely justified in her worries. She's worried about people like Menzer coming in with claims against parts of things that she owns or that she feels she owns. There happens to be 2 different wills, and she's claiming that the second will is not valid. It wasn't properly signed, so the first will giving her all the rights is the valid one. We'll be still watching these when they come out in court and find out what the courts actually decide on this. Do you have any thoughts or opinions on this from what you've read or seen?
I've seen a lot of paranoia, like you said, but when you're in the spotlight and you have anything negative said about you, I feel like you should be paranoid. To a certain extent.
The joke is it's not paranoia if they actually are out to get you.
Exactly. And if she's doing this through the courts, then that should be what decides. And it does take quite some time, usually.
Yeah, it may be a year or so before we get a thing. One of the things was about the different memorials that people wanted to put up, who had the right to spearhead it, who got,
So that's a little different. So I'm going to use a very famous Washington musician, and his name is Jimi Hendrix. He hates Washington. He has hated Washington since he was a child. There are lots and lots and lots of memorials in Washington, as well as other places where he loved. And each one of those was put together by the place that owns it. So, like, the memorial in Seattle is owned by the Seattle Parks and Recreation because it was put into their park. And I think that if you're willing to put the money forward and the land forward to put out a memorial, especially something so important to our community that will make it more of a mainstream thing, why would you fight it? Unless it's doing something awful like they've done with the original, what is the name of that war?
Civil War?
No, it's the one in Montana. Custer's Last Stand.
Oh.
So at first, the memorial.
That's the American Indian War.
Yeah, the American Indian War. But first, I was thinking of the battle. The first memorial had nothing to do with the Indians that were there. They weren't laid out. If you've ever been to Custer's Memorial, there is a tombstone at the approximate place where each person died during the battle. And they didn't have the Indian tombstones, even though they had more knowledge about where they were.
Right.
And they didn't have, the memorial was all about the white crusaders who came there to slaughter women and children. And now there's a beautiful memorial that's done with the collaboration of the other. So if they're going to put a memorial out there, as long as it's not excluding groups that are socially supposed to be there, so right. If they're going to use Dungeons and Dragons, using the old material to base it off of, because that's the stuff that he did right. Mm-hmm.
Well, if we're going to do a memorial to Gary Gygax, it will be a memorial about things that Gary Gygax. So there is a sort of memorial for Gary Gygax. In Lake Geneva Park, there is, instead of a statue, which there was an argument over where to put it, Obviously the family wanted to put it someplace prominent, and the city wanted to put it someplace a little over and away and on wetlands where it might sink or something. But there is a bunch of inscribed bricks on a path, and one of the bricks does read, "In loving memory of E. Gary Gygax, creator of Dungeons and Dragons, donated by his family, friends, and fans." Amidst these words is an illustration of a 20-sided die, and the top of it a sleeping dragon curled around of his guarding a treasure. And that is currently the only actual memorial to Gary Gygax.
See, and that's where I think that, like other people, like, I know that the glasses for Bob, no, not Bob, the day the music died. It's not Bob. The glasses, the iconic glasses, these ones.
Billie Holiday?
Billie Holiday are in several different places, including the place that he... And I think
she's trying to make me feel old by reciting history for her. Okay.
I love history. I love history, and those are a couple of the ones I know the most about. But I think that there should be more, and I don't think it should be limited. And I definitely think that if Wizards of the Coast wants to put one in Seattle, that they should.
I also think that there should be one for Dave Arneson.
Yes.
He was a co-author, and he has passed as well, so a memorial for him would not be...
No.
I mean, even a joint memorial.
A joint memorial would be phenomenal, because they did work together. And there is argument about some things, but it's still, at the end of the day, these are people who laid down the foundation for us to be here, to be helping people. And I think that a lot of people see that value throughout the entire world, because it's a way to get together with your friends and to keep them happy and to keep things going, even if you're not doing it therapeutically.
Somebody once did propose something that I think is even better than a memorial. Statues are nice.
Statues are nice.
But I almost said dungeon.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
A museum.
Oh, yeah.
They were talking about a Dungeons & Dragons museum, or even a role-playing game museum, which of course would start with Dungeons & Dragons. I think that would be even better. See the artifacts, see the things that were out of there.
Having been a part of a movement that has a museum, and I know it takes a lot of money to fund, which there is money in the community. I'm not saying there isn't. But it usually takes a good 40 to 50 years before the museum is viable. And we're reaching that right now, I do believe. We're getting to 50? About 50 years? Dungeons and Dragons? 60.
Yeah.
60. I was wrong. So, and they started, for the Vanning Museum, they started at 40 years, making it things like that are really cool, and I really love. And I have a few artifacts there that are very, very memorializing for people that live here or lived here. But you can't until you have all that memorabilia. And right now with the boom, I think it would be a great time to start it too, because there's a lot of stuff out there that isn't just going to be you walk in and this. You're going to see like the evolution of the boffer. I think that would be a really interesting exhibit and stuff like that, because you do have to fill museums with stuff and information.
So our next article is by the same person, Cecilia D'Antelio, and it is Dungeons & Dragons wouldn't be what it is today without these women. We've discussed it before. Don't raise your hand, you weren't there.
No, I was just doing the woman we
power.
Can do it.
We can do it, yeah. Okay. Your coverall's on for that one.
Yep. My hair's side back. I don't have the bandit.
There was a time that I heard somebody say there just wasn't a lot of women in Dungeons & Dragons when it first started. That's a complete myth. The very first person to play Dungeons & Dragons, well, not with the first person, because she was with a group of people, but one of the very first people to play Dungeons & Dragons was, at the very first playtest, Gary Gygax's daughter. By definition of the name, the word daughter, you should know that she was a female. The person who named Dungeons and Dragons was Gary X's younger daughter, who said, "I like Dungeons and Dragons." So I guess there was a list of names, and she picked the one that she liked best, and that's how we got the name. Mm-hmm. Almost every copy of a Dungeons and Dragons adventure written by a woman is buried in a landfill in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. You know why?
Why?
Well, those copies published in 1980 were the masterwork of a game designer named Jean Wells, who worked for D&D's first publisher, TSR. Wells designed Palace of the Silver Princess to her taste, with no regard to TSR's mandate to make the game more kid-friendly. At one point in the module, players encountered a beautiful young woman hanging from the ceiling naked by her own hair. 9 ugly men can be seen poking her with swords lightly into her flesh, all the while taunting her in an unknown language. That's a quote from the module.
Do you have it?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have the original orange cover?
Not the orange, the reprinted. It is the same, except that
they took away the offending picture.
I thought I had it pulled out already, actually, for the show.
Is it on top then?
Here, keep going.
Okay. Anyways, so the company wasn't so happy to see that a little bit of bondage here and a little bit of torture worked its way into Palace of the Silver Princess, even though it did turn out that it was just a magical illusion and no fictional women were actually in harm.
Not even the fictional ones.
Yeah. But 72 hours after Palace of the Silver Princess was released, it was retracted. If you have a copy of it, it's probably worth a small fortune. This is the module in the green cover, which is not the offending one. It does not have the picture of the woman hanging. The picture of the woman...
You can't see the green.
Yeah. The picture showing of the woman is she is not naked, despite the text saying she is. But it is...
Naked female centaur.
Yes, from the back view. Even from the front view. Back then, they did some front view things.
So it wasn't about the picture, right? It was about the description, right?
It was the description and the picture of a woman in bondage being tortured by 9 ugly men.
I thought that was still in here. I've run this adventure.
It should not be in there. It was not supposed to be in there. In which case, you have the wrong color cover. Yeah, those retracted modules, now dubbed the orange versions, are buried somewhere under Lake Geneva Flat, Wisconsin landscape. Don't bother to try to dig them up. I guarantee you that they weren't put in protective cases and survived the elements for that many years.
They might have been in plastic. Did they come in plastic originally?
They did come in plastic. I still don't think they would have survived 40 years.
You'd be surprised what you could find.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to do a road trip?
Oh, I want to, but I'm not.
Yeah, go down to Jerry Connie.
Yeah.
I went to the last Gen Con that happened in Lake Geneva. The other peoples, besides Gene, there's more we can talk about Gene, but other peoples that were in famous things, of course, is I want to make sure I say the right names. They did Dungeons and they did Dragonlance. Rose Estes was one of them. Tracy and Margaret Wise. That's the name I'm trying to get out of my mouth. Tracy Hickman and Margaret Wise. Margaret Wise is famous D&D role-playing. There is more, of course, in this article here about all the different people that worked with it. I do want to say women have been part of Dungeons & Dragons from the beginning. If you didn't see a lot of women in Dungeons & Dragons, that was because that was your table. It wasn't universal everywhere.
Well, and I think it also has to do a little bit with the over-stereotyping of toys and games. So in the 80s, they came out with color-coding the aisles. Before, it used to just be, like, dolls were interspersed with...
Right, they separated the aisles into boys' toys and
girls' toys. And Dungeons and Dragons found its way into the more boys' toys and things that were considered to be boys' toys.
If they were allowed in the hobbies section.
Yeah.
It was just in the hobbies.
But it depends on where you were looking, too.
Well, I mean, from the 70s through the 80s, it was just in the hobbies section. There wasn't a boys'
No, I'm talking about late 80s into 90s, 2000s.
Right, when all the myths were perpetuated.
Yes, and that's exactly what part of it is because
my groups were typically half female back in the 70s and early 80s.
Well, and then the other thing that we have to think about in this time is that they were saying that most of the gamers, anyone who is doing tabletop gaming of any form, and video games and stuff like that, were predominantly male, and that's not the truth. In 2017, 2015, an article came out that pronounced that if you including phone games, females make up 61 to 70%
even before that
of the game.
If you look at my research and such, I have the breakdown by gender and such for video games, and the only one that was slightly fewer females was like shooters were like 44% female.
And I totally believe
Almost
that.
All the other video games were actually more female dominant, and things like The Sims and everything were like 80%, World of Warcraft, etc. So,
Candy
it's
Crush
been that way for many years.
Candy Crush in I think 2015 came out, or no, 20. Yeah. Well, they came out in 2015 or 14, and then the study that they said of their demographics in 2017 from the data from 2015, 2016 was like 90% are female, or 80. It was 80% are female.
Yeah, it's the usual perpetuation of myths as fact is what's been going on for a long time. We're trying to break that down.
Yep.
I assume you know who Larry Ditillo is. Ditillio. Ditilio?
Ditillo?
No, that's not the same person.
Larry Ditillio. You know who this is?
No.
Well, I thought you would. I assumed you would because he's one of the writers from the first 2 seasons of Babylon 5. He is responsible.
Well, J. Michael Straczynski wrote like 80% of the stories, so he was a contributing writer.
He was a contributing writer. Yeah. He's more known for his Origins award-winning Mask of Nyarlathotep.
I don't know that one.
Which you have up here, actually.
Which I do.
He's also TNT. That's TNT's his Tunnels and Trolls, The Isle of Dark Smoke. He also wrote for Fat Albert, 2 He-Man shows, She-Ra, which he actually created, Beast Wars, and 2 seasons of Babylon 5. The reason I am mentioning him is on March 16th, at age of 76, he did finally pass away.
So it goes in the Cthulhu section.
Okay.
But Mask of Nyarlathotep is considered one of the best campaigns ever put out there, even if it is just for Call of Cthulhu.
Just for?
Well, I mean, it's not like it can be, you can port over every system to it.
Right.
It's I mean, there are multi-system
It's heavily
campaigns
story-driven, though, so you could bolt in any system you want.
Oh, yeah. One of these days I'll get lucky and somebody will run that for me.
Oh.
Okay, maybe
I'll get lucky too.
Dungeons and Dragons has found something its early fans never expected. This is on CNBC.
Oh, I read part of that article.
And what did they discover that early fans did not expect to happen?
I do not remember, and my phone is dead. It was open to it, and I was reading it.
Popularity. In each of the last 5 years, sales of Dungeons & Dragons merchandise has grown in double digits. The massive sales boom can be attributed to the launch of the 5th edition of the game in 2014 and the Dungeons & Dragons shows like Critical Role. The series of new players' handbooks and starter sets have been a large proportion of Wizards of the Coast Dungeons & Dragons sales growth. But you almost wouldn't think that Wizards of the Coast was seeing how popular Dungeons & Dragons is, the way that the Wizards Play Network is treating them. I will talk more about that. First, I do want to mention how Critical Role is, because we talked about Critical Role earlier in our talk shows, how it's doing with its Kickstarter. Then I want to talk about another Kickstarter that I want to take credit for a small proportion of its success. Though there's no evidence, I'll tell you the story and you decide. So, Critical Role.
What is their numbers right now?
Well,
because I can't look that up. I was going to.
I thought I had it open. Let me try again. I got the news article, Critical Role's massive crowdfunding successes kickstarted some interesting conversations. And
have they made it into the top 5? Last time I heard they were in the top 6.
Oh, no. They're not going to make it to the top 5. I can almost guarantee that. But they are currently in the top 9.
I thought they were at 6. No. Oh, no.
Nope. Switch that number upside down. It's a 9.
Okay.
They're working toward. They need to have another. They need to have 8 million to be top 7.
Oh.
Right now they are at $7,770,000. So $7.77 million.
777.
777. It's a holy number.
Mm-hmm.
There's 28 days left to go. So even though the growth has, in my opinion, grown to a crawl right now, because they were like the 3rd fastest to 1 million. They also got funded in less than 12 hours, fully funded in less than 12 hours.
Which almost never happens.
Well, actually, they got hit their first million, which was more than their $750,000 goal in a very short time. I don't have the actual numbers right here in front of me, but only very few games out there have done faster than this. So they're like 2nd or 3rd places. 3rd place, I believe they were. They're currently 9th place, almost on their way to 8th place for the most popular games ever. Their next goal is going to be 8.8. This is no longer about it was supposed to be an animated special, a one shot. It is now going to be a full series. The full season, almost, if they get 8.8, they will finish off the full first season. I would really hate to see the last 3 episodes not get published because they didn't make the next stretch goal.
Yeah.
But that's how these things sometimes work. And maybe they can get something else there. So, in a similar vein, there is a thing called Critical Core. Don't mistake it for Critical Role. But it says, Critical Core is a tabletop game that helps kids on the autism spectrum build confidence and social skills one dragon at a time. This is by Game to Grow.
Which is Adam Davis and Adam Johns. I was like, that's a common name.
It's the 2 Adams.
Yep, the 2 Adams. Which is, thank you for producing this. I can't wait to get my hands on it and read it.
Yes. It's reasonably priced, I think, at $50.
Because you get the whole thing, right?
Yeah, you get a whole package with this. You get the facilitator's guide for parents, therapists, and game masters. The best practices are running fun and effective therapeutic gaming groups. You don't have to be a therapist to do this. But us therapists are really going to glom on this. Player and game master guide. That's 2 books. Quick start rules and playing guides for players and game masters. Adventure modules, tested and tuned to be challenging and fun. Dice sets, 4 sets of dice. They may be changing that because there's 1 for each player, 1 for the game master, enough to run the 3-player game out of the box. They may not be changing that, but they did have 4 popular hero archetypes, each with their own unique abilities as character sheets. If they hit their next, no, they've already reached that goal. So they are already adding 2 more character sheets, the Bard and the Barbarian. So they're expanding that. There'll be game cards, not required for play, but helpful aids for both players and game masters, visualization, quick references, rules, and spell cards. Game tokens, visualization for working with including the map. So kind of like pawns, but like flat.
Are they going to put the X card? Because they're a big fan of the X card.
Well, no. And here's why. While the Creative Commons allows for anybody to use the X card, you really can't include it into a product that you're selling.
You're thinking, I'm saying in its essence, because so I have seen Adam's...
They may have some sort of mechanism such as No Thank You Evil does.
Or with the No Thank You Evil token. I think that is something, because I've seen Adam and Adam in several different panels. I'm thinking I'm somewhere around 8 panels I've watched them live, and like 4 or 5 more that I've watched digitally. And they have always been like, the most important thing is the X card, because you can't know all of your audience. Because,
right.
And especially when you're working with special populations.
Right. And in a therapeutic group, all games should have a session 0 where you discuss these things and what mechanics you're going to use. It may not come with a mechanic built in. It may or might. If it doesn't, then there are mechanics I'm sure they will send you to. And if they don't, ask them, ask us. We'll tell you what mechanics you can use. I'm not saying you can use. So $48,000 was the goal. Right, 91,811.
I was gonna say, I saw 90 last time I looked.
Yep, 91,000. It's 35 days left to go, so they still got plenty of time to hit that 100,000 for the next stretch goal, which will be a new module.
Woo!
I'm hoping they go pretty high. They're not going to get Critical Role levels.
No.
But Critical Role did help. So when this first came out the other day, and I was starting spreading the word on Twitter and on Facebook, I sent out a tweet that specifically said, if you backed Matt Mercer and Critical Role, may I please request that you also support Critical Core, Game to Grow and Critical Core. Moments later, Matt Mercer announced that he's backing Critical Core. And the numbers started skyrocketing right after that. So I am, whether I deserve it or not, am taking credit for a little bit of the success for Critical Core. I would like to think that Matt Mercer saw my tweet with his name on it and discovered Critical Core and backed it. I'd like to think. Is it true?
Nah. We'd have to ask.
It's not like I'm going to get an award or a citation for it, so meh.
It's just a fun story to tell.
Yeah.
Everyone likes their stories. Is this your big fish?
Yeah, my big fish is that I posted a tweet that was timely once. And my nearly 300 followers, somebody saw it. No, Matt is not following me. I follow Matt. Now, News Digest, D&D, movie news, and other things. So
there's a new movie.
Well, not yet. They're looking at their possibility that they're starting to get some casting done. A new script and early casting begins. These are the rumors. Not going to go much into that.
But I'm really bad. I haven't seen the last one that was based on Dungeons and Dragons. I meant to.
You'll see it eventually.
Yeah. Well, and the problem was it came out right in the last year of college. And if it wasn't a date night and my fiance wasn't interested in it, we didn't go see it because I didn't watch hardly anything.
Problem with Dungeons & Dragons movies that are actually labeled as Dungeons & Dragons movies, not movies that are thematically Dungeons & Dragons movies, is that there did not get a lot of backup.
Hasbro doesn't want the money?
Yeah, this is pre-Hasbro.
Oh. Wasn't the last one done with Wizards of the Coast?
Pre-Hasbro. I could be incorrect, but
I thought it was not pre-Hasbro.
It did not get the backing it needed for a super movie.
No,
it did not get Lord of the Rings level support or any of those other things.
What's the name of it? I Google Dungeons and Dragons movie. 2000s.
I
can't remember.
But also, Joe Manganiello is self-promoting a Dragonlance film. In 2021, might make it there first. Joe's favorite character is in the Dragonlance setting, so he's trying to push for his own movie.
Maybe he can get some other famous movie star.
Maybe. There is not a lot of information. There is a new editor at Wizards of the Coast. That's not something, that's not part of the things. But Robin's Laws of Good Gaming is good. Robin's Laws of Good Game Mastering, which we have talked about in a lot of our training sessions. We've mentioned in our talk show.
We've read lots of excerpts from.
We read the whole book.
We did read the whole book. I was just going to say excerpts because we put commentary in there.
Right. Well, we read the whole book with lots of commentary, so we did not break any copyright laws, in case anybody's listening. But Steve Jackson Games announced that they will be reprinting Robin's Laws of Good Game Mastering as part of their Kickstarter for Dungeon Fantasy Monsters 2, originally published in 2002. Was one thing. It's looking at a $13 add-on price for the Dungeon Fantasy Kickstarter, so the retail price should be in about the same range. I'm wondering how much updating it's going to get, or if it's just going to be a reprint of the original. I'm hoping to have some updating.
There is some studies that they could use as research behind a lot of the reasons why they have Robin's rules, which would be a very interesting way to go about it. But other than that, I think that there are, other than updating the stereotypes, I don't think that there's much that they could, in what I've seen, too much. Or what were you thinking they'd update?
Well, okay, some reference to the, some of the research and the histories that are coming in. Maybe a slight change in some of his wording for like all dungeon masters are control freaks.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. But
because I'm definitely not a control freak.
I would still like to see what, even if they don't change anything else, I want to see a paragraph at the end that says, this is what I wrote back then, and these are my thoughts. I stand by 100%, or these are how I feel things have changed in those years.
I would like to see that commentary at the end of what, or if he doesn't even change it, but the reasons behind what he's seen and how he's seen it.
Yeah, because he's had plenty of years to continue to observe and participate. So it would be nice to see what he feels the new changes are, if any. Now, WPN, you asked about the service. The Wizards of the Coast has announced plans to revamp Wizards Play Network, the company promotional network for hobby stores. Now, unfortunately, Wizards of Play Network has been ramping back what they do in support of Dungeons and Dragons. They're all about the support for Magic the Gathering.
Yep.
All about it. There are giveaways. There's promo things to hang up in the stores. And your levels with the store's levels within the WPN dictate what items you can get and sell. There are products that if you're not high enough in their levels, they won't let you sell.
Well, in a lot of stores like yours, John, I've noticed run a lot of Dungeons and Dragons to keep their numbers up.
Correct. My store, Uncle's Games in the Valley, was relying on my Dungeons and Dragons sessions on Wednesdays, and we've expanded that, by the way, to a Saturday game. There was a Sunday game for a while for the adults, and then when I stopped coming to the Sunday games because of conflict of time, that one went away. But we were getting enough numbers from our Dungeons and Dragons games not to need Magic the Gathering games in that store and keep us at the top levels. So at least in our store,
I met a store manager who said the same thing on the other side of the state, in Tacoma. I'm not going to disclose who, but
yeah.
And then there was a small shop in the valley that I went to who said basically the same thing. He said, we don't get much for our weekly Magic tournaments, but our every other night D&D sessions get a lot more people.
So the issue, is support. The top 5% of stores will be Wizards Play Network Premium. That's the new high level. So if you're in the bottom 95% you get regular store support. But if you're in the top 5% of the stores with Magic the Gathering events, then you'll be in the Wizard Play Network Premium and receive additional support such as priority listing in the store and event locator, in-store advertising like light-up logo signs, and exclusive events. And they've given out special cards. They've had tokens and other things that they've given out. Now, when we first started doing this...
pins before.
Mm-hmm. When we first started doing this in the store stuff, and they were supporting all this, we used to get modules, physical modules that were store exclusives, miniatures to hand out. I had spell templates to hand out, dice. It would be just a die 20, but it'd be a die 20 with this season's logo on it. We have things to give out.
And to entice people into the store to play with the store.
Posters.
Not just their cousin in the basement.
Right. But they started ramping those back and giving us less and less stuff.
They've changed your title, 3 times in the last few years?
Well, they never changed my title.
Oh.
I worked in 2 different organizations within it. I was a Wizards of the Coast delegate. Mm-hmm. So I worked for Wizards of the Coast in all. They paid me in toys, but they gave me enough toys that I had to declare them on my taxes, literally.
That would be kind of nice. It
was nice. But they got rid of that program. Mm-hmm. Then I was a Dungeons & Dragons Adventures League local area coordinator. Still worked with all the stores. We were still getting things. I have a nice Wizards of the Coast t-shirt and a polo shirt. I have a shirt from when I was delegate too, but it was a different program. They had physical module stills, maps, occasional minis, and things like that. And eventually they started saying, well, if you want the module, the exclusive module that comes with the introduction of a new book, then you have to download it. Mm-hmm. And you print it out yourself. They used to give you out cards so people can track the magic items they got. Here's your token saying that you actually earned that magic item. They got rid of those. So everything's printed on demand. The introduction module, if they give you one, will be you have to download it. They have to send it to you. Give you the password so you can get it and download it. And then it'll be just the first chapter or the first story of the actual book. So it's like a preview. They also used to do, if you had a physical store, you would get, and you were as a WPN member, you could get your books 2 weeks before Amazon.
Oh.
That's gone away. Mm-hmm. No more early releases, and no physical modules.
So then it's just driving business away from non-online stores.
Well, as far as Dungeons & Dragons is concerned.
Yes.
They're making enough from Amazon and stuff that they're not being as supportive as they were at the store. Now, their store stuff, they're still supporting Magic like gangbusters. But when
I wonder if that's going to change in the next few years with the change of how they can sell Magic cards in most states.
Don't know. I do know that there was no mention made of Dungeons & Dragons in the announcement saying that WPN Premium is coming out, but the frequently asked question posted elsewhere on the WPN site states, Dungeons & Dragons events will not count towards the minimum metrics required to become one of the top 5. In other words, all the numbers that I was generating no longer count when they switch over to the system. That means I may lose my position as the tournament organizer for Dungeons & Dragons because WPN is no longer giving them any incentive to do it. They might continue to do it because I bring customers into the store, but WPN is no longer giving them any incentive. Says stores that do not host Magic the Gathering events will receive WPN support in the form of preview adventures. Again, preview adventures currently have been previews of the physical book and if you can get it before the book comes out, so you can run it as an event. Alternate art covers is something that they are doing. I should have brought mine so you can see the difference. We have our standard Dungeons & Dragons books that you can buy online, but they have nice fancy covers that could only be bought in the stores if you're a WPN store. So we still get the alternate art covers. You don't get them early. The preview adventures are not a physical thing like getting with the cards. And you still get a listing in the event locator. You're not going to get the priority listing or anything else like that.
So they're shutting game stores out of playing Dungeons & Dragons for incentives.
As far as incentivizing them, yes, they're shutting them out. I don't know why. I don't know if this is a Wizards decision or a Hasbro's decision or a drunk monkey in the back of the room. I don't know who making these decisions.
Or someone just oversight because they want to spend their money on Magic the Gathering or something else.
I have no problem with
400th release of Monopoly.
I have no problem with people liking Magic the Gathering. I don't prefer to play it myself because I don't like having to completely buy everything over and over and over and over and over again to keep up with the tournaments. It's a monkey. It's a money sink.
I play Commander because of that. Because you can still have fun playing Commander with a shoddy deck, because sometimes you get into Commander battles that 6 people I've had that last like 10 hours if you're playing elves and getting a little, tapping for tokens.
Try playing with a goblin deck.
Yeah. Goblin versus elves versus soldiers. That was the longest game. There was also vampires and something else in there because I was playing vampires. But they killed me an hour into it, and I left to go to class. And then I came back 3 hours later before I went to work, and they had just gotten to the point where they killed one more, or they just finished because of an infinite loop.
Some tournaments have timers.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a tournament. We were just playing for fun.
Okay, so.
But yeah, no, I play Commander because of that.
Well, the last thing I want to say about Magic the Gathering before we wrap this up is I'm also, besides the vice president of RPG research, I am the vice chair of SPOCON, which is our local literary and fan convention. This year's theme that we'll be doing in August is Goblins. All Hail the Goblin Kings, the official title of it. One of the things that they're doing to promote it, and I'm just, really, the only reason I'm bringing this up is because you're a Magic player. Mm-hmm. They're having tournaments. I think there's going to be like 8 different tournaments leading up to the convention. And, of course, getting it, you'll get your ticket to go into the convention, and then you can win prizes once you get into the convention. Mm-hmm. But it is, everybody has to play a Goblin deck.
I can do that.
So...
Undead goblins.
As long as they're goblins, then you're good. Undead goblins, you're creepy as all get out, but go for it. Yeah, Goblin Black deck. That's going to be fun.
Red Black.
Yeah.
I don't play Red Blue because I don't like to say, "Oh, you played that? Now it's night."
You don't like doing that?
Oh no, you can't play that. No, you don't get a turn. I don't like playing with people when I don't get to play. I think that's also why I haven't done many tournaments in the last few years, because I used to play a lot of tournaments so I could get fresh cards so that my different decks could do really well. But I don't do that lately because it just seems like a big money grab, and I don't get a lot of prize. Well, the places I've been playing don't get a lot of prize support.
Right. Well, we're running to the end of our show, and we'll wrap this up. I will let everybody know that we will be on again in approximately half an hour.
Yep.
And we will be doing RPG research. We'll be doing a actual play event. It's not, well, I won't call it event because we do these things. Applied gaming is what we call it. And we're going to teach our game masters how to use specific games in the role-playing game scenarios. There are 5 different types of role-playing games. We mentioned them at the very beginning. This is an SABM, Solo Adventure Book or Module, but in this case, it's actually a board game, and we're going to actually run this for a little while. And on April 5th, I will be running this again, but this will be an audience interactive version of it. All decisions will be made by the the audience, and it will be for a charity and us. Our
RPG research.
RPG research. It will be to support RPG research. And if there's a tie, I will make a decision about where we go. And hopefully I don't just kill everybody off just for the fun of it. Who knows? Anyways, we'll see you in about 30 minutes. I'm John Wilker.
And I'm Danielle Whitworth.
Good night and dream well.